Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Courtside with Beilinson Tennis, part of the Tennis Channel Podcast Network. Y'all are seeing a huge smile on my face right now because we are recording post, a few hours after Rafael Nadal comes from 2 sets down to beat Daniil Medvedev in an incredible match. Rafa wins his 21st slam. History made. Congrats. Huge congrats to both Rafa and Ash Barty. We're going to get into a lot of details with that. One housekeeping item before we start. I know some of you like to view the video versions of these on YouTube. Just an FYI, we upload about 90 to 95% of these onto YouTube. We don't upload every one. So make sure you're subscribing to the audio only podcast. It's available on all major podcast platforms. We don't want you to miss anything. Rate us, subscribe to it, give us a good review, all that good stuff. With that being said, as always, I'm happy to have on my co-host and Hall of Famer Steve Flink join me on this Sunday afternoon in the States. Steve, before we get into the details, what a final.
Yeah, I mean, it was astounding. I mean, I have seen higher level 5-set finals. I think we probably would all agree on that. There was a fluctuating level of play from both, but the fighting spirit and the spectacular comeback of Nadal, that is we've talked about him so many times and how indefatigable he is, and one of the great competitors. I think day in, day out, the greatest competitor we've ever seen in tennis. Djokovic is the best clutch competitor, has made more astounding comebacks than Rafa, all told. But Rafa, just the way he plays point in, point out, and never gives up. And this was a demonstration of that. I mean, how can you explain giving away 10 years to your opponent, who's number 2 in the world and you seemingly on the verge of becoming number 1 in the world, who's just won the last major, Daniil Medvedev? And for Medvedev to put Rafa in a 2-sets-to-love bind, and Rafa not to get discouraged and to raise his level as decidedly as he did those last 3 sets. I mean, I think when all is said and done, his career is over, David, he'll consider this one perhaps his most gratifying triumph. Wimbledon final over Federer will always be remembered as his greatest match, and he'll cherish all of his French Opens, 13 and counting right now. But this is the one I think when he'll consider his most satisfying because it was the most improbable.
No disagreement for me on anything that you just said. I think you're spot on. And before we get into the details of this match, there's just some astounding numbers. And we'll take it from a high level at first. And the big three, since the year 2004, at least one of the big three has made at least a semi in 70 of the past 71 slams. The lone exception was the 2020 US Open, where Rafa and Roger did not play and Novak got defaulted in the 4th round. Further, 64 of 67 Grand Slam finals since 2005 have included a member of the big three. To talk a little bit more of Rafa, not bad for a clay courter. He now has at least 500 career hard court wins. He's the only one to have 400 plus wins on both clay and hard. Let's just dive into the match, and it was something. We have so many notes here. We're going to keep it organized as best as we can. First set was not really much to talk about. Daniil wins the first set 6-2. To me, and to I think everybody, the match really got interesting in the second set. Rafa's up a break 4-1. He then gets Daniil hold 4-2. Rafa gets broken at 4-3, but then he breaks back 5-3, has 1 set point. It was a long game, didn't do anything with set point, has 2 mini breaks in the tie break, and doesn't capitalize. And Daniil wins that set 7-6. I'm going to leave it to Steve to dissect that second set.
Well, David, that was a good summary. I would only say this. Yes, he had the 1 set point on his serve. True. Wasn't much he could do. Medvedev played a really good point there and forced him into an error on his backhand side. And it was a tough, long game. He got broken. Medvedev eventually pulled it back into the tiebreak. From 5-3 down in the tiebreak, that's where I thought Medvedev had won the match, because Rafa missed a stretch. He ended up trying to serve and volley, and Medvedev hit a return right at his feet. That was a great play from Medvedev. Then Rafa misses a stretch volley. Then Medvedev hits a backhand swing volley winner, and then a brilliant backhand pass to cap it all off. So you really couldn't fault Rafa for that, but it was such a brilliant succession of points from Medvedev in the clutch that you had to believe that even Rafael Nadal might be demoralized at that point as the tiebreaker slipped away, not through his own ineptitude, but through the excellence of his opponent.
He's up 4-1, Steve, and 5-3 breaks. We're not even talking the tiebreaker. I mean, Rafa's got to win that set. And then again, he has 2 mini breaks in the breaker. You don't see Rafa give that up a lot of in his career.
No, I'd be a little less critical than you are in the sense that these guys were constantly breaking. There were a lot of breaks and breaking back in this match. So one break, they both returned so well that there's no one break lead is safe. So I really wouldn't fault Rafa too much. Yes, it's a lot of opportunities to get away, including the set point, but especially that sequence in the tiebreak. Medvedev's stick-to-itiveness and the way that he elevated his game when it really counted. And you had to believe when he made the backhand down the line pass to end, that the match was over. And then, of course, we go to that critical stage in the third. Medvedev up 3-2 with love 40 on Rafa's serve. And that's where we all thought it was over, David. It was, you had to believe he's gonna exploit one of those break point opportunities, get to 4-2, serve his way to 5-2, and the match is going to be a straight set triumph for Medvedev and a second straight major. But it didn't work out that way.
No, it didn't. And Patrick McEnroe, at the very point you described, at 2-3, Rafa serving down love 40, Patrick McEnroe said, "This is all but over." And thank God it wasn't. Thank God it wasn't. And boy, he comes through in that third set. He kind of, I don't know if it's the right way, but he kind of like stole that set. It was 4-4 and he wins at 6-4. It was nothing like unbelievable that happened, but
yeah, exactly. And the other thing is, David, you and I have had the discussion so many times about, an opportunity to break, getting it away, and then you lose your own serve in the next game. Didn't happen to Medvedev. He got right back on the horse, held serve for 4-3. So still Rafa, with the pressure of knowing if he doesn't hold, Medvedev's going to be serving for the match. He runs out 3 straight games. Pretty remarkable effort that was too, to close out the third set. And then, of course, we had quite a bit more drama flooding through the 4th set, didn't we?
We did. And like you said earlier, there were a lot of breaks in this. Rafa's up a break, 2-1 serving. He gets broken for 2-2. And then at 2-2, love 40, he has 3 break points on Medvedev's serve, right? And he misses a patented inside-out forehand, 34, but he still managed to break after a few deuce points to go up 3-2.
David, yeah, absolutely. It was on his 7th break point. And amazing. You're right. At love 40, it looked certain he would break. And then Medvedev got all the way back to the ad. He had almost stole that game, would have been a critical hold. And Rafa finally breaks on his 7th break point. And I think we should just sort of reinforce that was the nature of this match. There were so many hard fought, long deuce games on both of their serves that was just the pattern in this match. It was not an occasional thing. And that's why the match eventually went, not just the number of games in 5 sets, but it went 5 hours and 24 minutes, primarily because of those long deuce games, which would eat up 8-10 minutes sometimes. And it just showed you what a fierce battle it was.
It really was. And Rafa had in that 4th set, had a set point with Medvedev serving 3-5. Medvedev holds. Rafa holds to take the 4th set 6-4, and on to a 5th set we go. I will say this before we start getting into the details of the 5th. I felt probably a few games into the 5th set, I didn't think Rafa would be fatigued because I didn't think the crowd would allow Rafa to get tired. I think at this point, especially midway in the 5th set, I thought adrenaline was going to push Rafa all the way through, whether he won or lost. I didn't think fatigue was going to be the reason Rafa would lose this set.
Oh, and the crowd, you mentioned the audience. The audience was critical, and they were behind him 101%. It was very tough on Medvedev, obviously, but part of it was an adrenaline rush, I'm sure. But the other thing we should talk about, David, just briefly before we get to the 5th, is that Rafa seemed to me that he looked physically at his worst in the 1st set. he improved significantly in the second set, his level, and probably should have won it, as we just described all his opportunities. Medvedev stole that set, but I felt like physically Rafa was doing a lot better. Footwork was improved, forehand was better, dictating more rallies. It should have been heartbreaking to lose the set, but I thought from the time that he got out of his love 40 hole in the third there at 2-3, that physically his durability was astounding to me. He just looked very, very strong to me. In fact, conversely, I didn't feel that about Medvedev. And we should mention that in that sequence there in the third set, he did, at one point there, he did call the trainer. Trainer started working on his legs. He looked a little less sharp to me, a little fatigued as early as the third set, Medvedev. He was hoping to finish it off, but it looked to me like the tournament caught up with him a bit on a physical level. And as the match progressed, David, I thought he overdid the drop shot. And Nadal was onto it. And Daniel had so many opportunities to step in and lace backhands that he would have done earlier. Either go flat down the line or just nail it cross court. He wasn't doing either. Rafa was reading the drop, and that hurt Medvedev considerably. But maybe that was partially that he just didn't trust his own legs. I don't know what was going on, but physically he looked like the more worn out man over the second half across the second half of the match, much more so than Rafa 10 years his senior.
Well said. And you just said 10 years as senior. Well, we'll chalk it up to the slowness of the first set. As you get older, it takes a little more time for your body to get warmed up and ready. So we'll say that as an excuse.
But I also but David, I also think he was apprehensive in the first set. I think, he always talks about doubts. He uses the word doubt more than any other great player in history, because that's how he looks at it. And he constantly throughout his career has talked about the nagging doubts he has in his mind, but he overcomes them. And I've had the feeling in the first set, he wasn't sure he could stay with Medvedev. And then that made him look even a little bit slower. He was tight. And when he was down a break in the first set and serving at 2-4, he started that next game with 2 double faults. He was a mess. And I think some of that was psychological.
Yep. Well said. So we return now to the fifth set. Rafa has a break point in the first game against Medvedev. Medvedev winds up, I think he has 3 aces in that first game, served huge to get out of there.
Yeah.
Rafa does eventually break at 2-2. He's up 3-2, 40-15, and a long game. He doesn't win that game easy. It's a long game. He holds 4-2, critical game right there. And they keep holding. And I will leave it to you before we get to 5-4, Rafa serving for history.
Well, here's the thing. Rafa looked like he had it wrapped at 5-3 in the fifth, and he serves for the match. And he had his chance to serve out the match there at 5-4.
30 love. 30 love.
30 love, he looked like as good as gold. And then he missed a running forehand that I don't think he normally would. He wasn't trying to hit it hard. He was hitting it kind of a high trajectory, looping it cross court, and it went long. Might have shaken him a little because then he double faults on the next point.
He loses 4 points in a row.
Yeah, and ends up losing the next 2 from there. So from 30 love, never wins another point. But the critical mistakes were the forehand error and the double fault that made him tight at 30 all. And Medvedev exploited it to the hilt. And then we get another shocker because Medvedev is now back on serve at 5-all. You feel like the worst that can happen to him now is he's going to get to a 5th set tiebreak. The extended tiebreak that they use at the Australian Open in the final set would have been a very exhilarating way to complete this match. Didn't happen. Medvedev serves his way to 30-15 with an ace, but still ends up getting broken after a couple of deuces, saved a few break points, but he never was able to really, after that ace, get any free points off that serve. Rafa was able to pick it and block returns down the middle. Medvedev got a little bit tight and remarkably, that's again another example of a break and a break back because Medvedev was not able to really cash in on that great opening he had created for himself. Now at 6-5 though, Rafa doesn't make any mistake about it. He gets to 30 love, then an ace out wide in the deuce court for 40 love, and a beautiful backhand volley to finish it off down the line. So this time not the same angst. The second time around serving for it, he was very confident, and I think he knew. I think this time when he got to 30 love, he made certain he was not going to let him back in again.
And at 2004, when Rafa gets broken the first time serving for it, in his post-match comments, he said he thought back to 2012 and 2017 when he was up a break both times in the fifth set. And he said a swear word. We're not going to say it here. And Rafa doesn't swear. He said a swear. He goes, F, I can't believe I'm up a break. I lost it. I'm going to lose it again.
Well, you know what? Those were a little different, though. I just like to clarify a bit where he's being a little hard on himself. The first one in 2012 was against Novak, and he's 4-2, 30-15, and has an open court, not real big opening for a backhand pass down the line with no Djokovic and really stranded on the other side of the court, and Rafa steered it wide, and then he ended up losing that game and eventually lost the set and the match. Then against Roger in 17, 5 years later, he was 3-1 in the fifth. So it's not quite the same as having a chance to serve the match out.
Right. He wasn't as close to the finish line as he was now, but
3-1.
still, if you're in that situation, doubts are going to creep. You're like, he's had so much bad luck. You've talked about it several times on our pod. Weird stuff happens to him in Australia, and it goes into his mind, but only Rafa can do what he does. And to get broken, have those thoughts in immediately, just stay in the present and break right back. I don't know anybody else, maybe Novak, like you said about his clutchness, but unbelievable. How many people would be like in despair, losing, getting broken, serving out, especially for history?
Yeah, no, it was a remarkable effort. I mean, just really, it's just a phenomenal string of hard losses he's had. In a way, it was as if he was being rewarded for all of his missed opportunities and all of his hard luck, because 2011, he had won the last three Grand Slam events of 2010, the French, Wimbledon, and US, and then came there, played David Ferrer, who he owned, and he got hurt. And that really cost him that match. He was very hobbled in that match. Then the match with Novak that we just talked about, and then obviously the Roger final, but in between Stan Wawrinka, who he'd never lost. The 2014 final, he loses, hurting his back in the warm-up, and he eventually lost in 4 sets. That match was almost a lock for him at that time. So he really had some, and then Novak just obliterated him, in the finals a couple of years after his loss to Roger. Okay, that's to be expected. If on a hard court, Novak at his best, he could tolerate that. But still, it's another final, another loss, another missed opportunity. So here, the match that he probably should have lost is the one that he won. And I think it's very fitting in its way that it would happen in this fashion. Not to mention, even a year ago, 2 sets up against Tsitsipas in the quarters, looks certain, and loses that in 5. So that, it's just, as opposed to so many of the other majors, where he has always come through in the clutch, and where opportunities have not eluded him. Australia has always been his bad luck land, but not this year.
Not this year. And 5 hours and 24 minutes later, 35-year-old Rafael Nadal comes back from a 2-love deficit, wins his 21st major. It's incredible when you look at what Novak was doing in the US Open the past fall in New York. They were both obviously going for 21, but Novak had so much more pressure all squaring him because he was going for the Grand Slam. Rafa wasn't going for the Grand Slam, and 2, he's just coming off from not even playing on tour for a while. This was kind of like, I don't know if Rafa would ever say this quote, but almost like house money, right? He didn't know if he would even be on the court again. And here he is, round by round by round, working himself way into this tournament, and boom, all of a sudden he has the trophy. Remarkable.
Well, you said it well, and let's remember the expression that he had right after the match. The smile that he had was very revealing, and I think it was reinforcing what you just said in a way. Essentially, what he was saying with that smile was, "I cannot believe this happened. This is just almost too good to be true." Because he really didn't think going over there that he had a chance, and he had COVID in December, and there was some doubt about even playing the tournament at all. And then let's not forget that Djokovic situation happened, so Djokovic would have been on his half of the draw, gone. Zverev almost certain to play him in the quarters, and Zverev these days is not a good matchup for Rafa in my mind. Zverev loses to Shapovalov. Then Shapovalov makes the comeback against Rafa, with Rafa having the stomach problems, and somehow Rafa holds on after losing the third and fourth sets, wins in 5, and says afterwards, he said it was a miracle. And then, of course, nice solid win over Berrettini and the spectacular comeback today. An extraordinary series of events that led to this title. But in the end, we can't just say it's good fortune. It was also a lot of grit and a lot of gumption on Rafael Nadal's part to pull this match out against such a formidable opponent as Medvedev, who makes you work so hard.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. And we could talk, all day about this, but we have other things we need to hit on, because this was an incredible 2 weeks. And go ahead, Steve.
Quick interjection, David. We should just make a brief comment, excuse me, about Medvedev. Tough for him because he's won his first major at the US Open. He thought he might be on a roll here, get this one, spoil it for Rafa the way he'd spoil it for Novak in New York. And now he's lost for another major final, 2 in a row here in Australia, to Novak and to Rafa. And of course, it's just at a time when we thought, maybe he was going to assert himself as a big match player. So it's a bruising loss to him on the heels of his first major.
Yeah, but I think both of us agree this guy's not going anywhere. He's got titles to win.
Not at all. But I still think it will sting. If he had lost this match to Rafa 6-2 in the fourth, or lost in straight, like getting over the Novak match a year ago, that one I think he just tried to say, what can I learn from this? What was wrong with my attitude? And you do move on very comfortably from there. But now he's lost 2 major finals, to 2 heartbreaking 5-set final round losses to Rafa because of the 2019 US Open as well. 1 to Novak. He's 1 in 3 in major finals. I do think it will change, but you have to have some sympathy for him to put him.
Absolutely.
And
but
especially
that's sports, Steve. And I think the great ones,
yeah.
I mean, look, Novak, Rafa, and Roger have some of the most painful losses you could ever imagine. And they take it, they use it as fuel, they learn from it. And again, I think both of us, I mean, Daniil is a heck of a player and he isn't going anywhere. It will sting, but he will be back in major finals, no doubt.
Yeah, another thing just quickly about the major finals. Rafa goes now to 21-8, which is it's the best of the big 3, because Roger and Novak are 20-11 in major finals. They've been in more at 31. Rafa with 29 finals, but Rafa has capitalized just that little bit more than them. So he has the best record in major finals of the trio. He also ties Novak for winning at least 2 of every major across his career, something Roger has not been able to do. And Novak had been the first one to do it by winning the French last year, since Rod Laver had won his Grand Slam in '69. So his second Grand Slam. So so Rafa hit 2 big milestones today to finally get that career set of at least 2 at every major, where he'd been so close so many times here, and to now take the lead for the first time in majors, with Roland Garros coming up next.
We talked about that on our year-end segment. I said, and it was a big if, because of such bad luck that's happened to Rafa in Australia. If Novak didn't play, I remember us talking about it. If Novak didn't play or whatever, and Rafa wins Australia, then he could win Roland Garros again. We know how strong he is there. That all of a sudden becomes a 2-slam differential right now. We're not there yet. So let's just enjoy this. But history, we'll see how that all plays itself out.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But I just saying, who would have believed it? Because there was Novak on the edge of winning the Grand Slam, 1 match away, doesn't get it. Then there was a lot of thought that as long as he came to Australia, before all the fuss and the saga, that he would be the clear favorite. Medvedev was regarded by many as, say, a co-favorite, but that Novak would maybe get number 21 here. And there was still talk of that right up to the moment he was deported. So it's remarkable the way it all turned out. And I think if someone had told Rafa that day that Novak went home, by the way, Rafa, you're going to win the tournament, he would have laughed.
Yeah. It's remarkable, like you said, and remarkable is what our women's champion Ash Barty did these past 2 weeks, because she rolled through this tournament. Steffi Graf, she holds the record for fewest games dropped en route to an Australian Open final, when Steffi only lost 24 games when she won it in 1989. Ash absolutely cruised up until the final, had lost 21 games up until she played Danielle Collins. Ash gave up 9 games to Danielle, so she didn't break Steffi's record, But before we get into a few details of the match, I want to hear from you, Steve. Such a dominating performance throughout the 2 weeks. She was really impressive.
Yeah, I mean, your statistics validate that point. No, it was her best major yet of the three. You know, winning the French way back in 19, taking Wimbledon last year. Now this one, Ash is. I think she's moving to another level, David, because I don't think she was capable of dismissing so many opponents, not just in straight sets, but comprehensively. But in the final, I felt like it was the first time she was put under that kind of pressure. Madison Keys had not been able to do it by any means. But here was Danielle Collins really pressuring Ash with the second serve returns, and Danielle Collins might have the best backhand in women's tennis right now. She takes it so early and hits winners at will and with ease, and she built that five. It was pretty routine first set, David. You know, one break for Ash, and she had down break point on her serve, and then she got the break herself in the next game, and it was a comfortable first set.
Yeah, I think Collins had a break point at 2-2 in the first. She failed to convert. Well, gets immediately broken. Broken.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. You know, a little bit of a struggle there at 2-all. Holds, breaks in the next game, sails, and it looked like it was going to be sort of replicate all the rest of Ash's matches throughout the tournament. But then what a surge from Collins to go up 5-1 in the second. This is where I admire Ash Barty. Because somebody of Collins' caliber who's returning like that, who's up 2 breaks against you, serving for the set, you kind of have a choice to make in your mind. Are you going to let that game go and start serving the third set? Look at it that way. Or are you going to go after it? And she went after it. And what a surge back to 5-all she made. And
before one point I wanted to talk about before we get to the 5-all, you know, Danielle was up. She had a 5-1 lead, as you said. She never had a set point, but there was a point. There was a point, I believe, 5-3, 15-30 or 30-all, where Ash hits an inside-in forehand that catches the back of the line. If that ball misses, Danielle gets a set point, and then it could be a different match if she wins that.
That's a big if. You're right. No, she had 30-love in the 5-3 game. It's true. But what I'm saying is I didn't feel, and you mentioned the inside forehand inside-in winner, but that's Ash's brilliance, Ash's talent, Ash's big point propensity. I don't think I would
blame back of the line.
Right, but still, she went for it and she hit it cleanly and fair enough. And I just feel like Collins couldn't really lament too much because she didn't, you know, it wasn't as if she threw it away from 5-1. And then in the tiebreak, and again, Collins then managed to get that one more hold and got herself into the tiebreak, which was a good effort. But Ash was just way too good in the tiebreaker, which she won 7-2. And I just thought, as I say, I think it was her best major tournament yet. The biggest showcase for her talent. The first Australian woman since Chris O'Neill back in 78. And no men have won it since 76. So it's been a long drought for Australians at their country's championship. So it was nice to see Chris O'Neill, who was a relatively obscure player who won over a weak field back then. Nice to have her in the crowd watching Ash win it, and also for Yvonne Goolagong to attend for the presentation ceremony, which nobody knew she was going to do in advance. That was the best kept secret of the fortnight.
Yeah, just remarkable by both Ash and Rafa. They did it 2 different ways, right? Rafa had to struggle a lot more to get the title. Ash not as much, but both amazing champions. And I think when you say, and by all, you know, from everybody who knows both these individuals, to say that not only are they great champions, they may be even better people. You know, tennis is in a good spot when you have 2 people pioneering the sport, leading the sport like they are today, which is major kudos to both Rafa and Ash. And there's some other people that I want to talk about that I was really impressed with. I know you were too. I want to talk about Felix, FAA, Felix Auger-Aliassime, because I know this guy is impressive as all get out. And one of my favorite patterns, you've heard me talk about it till you're probably sick of me talking about it. The hold, you know, when you hold while serving, when saving a break point, and then follow it up with an immediate break theme, it happens all the time. You know, FAA played a heck of a match against Medvedev, and he had a match point. It was 4-5 in the 4th set. in the quarters. 4-5 match point on Daniil's serve. FAA couldn't convert, and what happens? He gets broken immediately the next game, and then Daniil held to win that 4th set 7-5 and went on to win the 5th set. If you listen to FAA's press conference afterwards, I wish all junior players would listen to that. It was the most mature that I've heard a player take in a tough defeat like he did. And I know he hasn't won a title yet, but that's a matter of when, not if. And, big titles, not just any titles await FAA, big titles await FAA.
Yes, but some more kudos to Felix beyond the compliments you just paid him, which were so well deserved, is that in the 5th set, and Daniel also hit a great serve on the match point. I don't think Felix could really crush himself over that.
No. He didn't have an opportunity on that. I'm just saying this, the match circumstance.
But it was a great clutch serve, and then he served his way out of that game at Medvedev. They go to the 5th, and Medvedev was down 15-40 in his first service game. There were 3 service games where he was down break points, 6 break points altogether, and he was twice down 15-40, including when he served for the match. So Felix fought hard to the end and had opportunities to the end, and it was just some great serving under pressure from Medvedev that got him through that match. And I'm very encouraged about Felix. I mean, he beat Zverev at Wimbledon last year. He made the semis of the Open, didn't play all that great against Medvedev, but it was nice to see him in the semis. So you see now major after major, the kind of impression he's making. And now to come from having lost to Medvedev soundly at the US Open, to getting beaten by him 4-love in the ATP Cup just a few weeks ago, to nearly being 1 point away from beating him here at the Australian Open, I'm very encouraged about him and the progress, slow, steady progress he's making. And I think that Tony Nadal should be very proud of what he has done for this kid, and the kid himself, and Felix himself should know that he's on the verge of something very important here. I think over the course of the year, we're going to see him in the latter stages of majors again, and wouldn't shock me if he won one.
Yeah. His future is so bright. People have known that for a while, but he's at the point right now that he is right there, and he will definitely get over that finish line soon. How about this? I guess stay on an Australian theme. I mean, it was some tournament for the Australians. Nick Kyrgios is a Grand Slam champion. Nick Kyrgios and Tanzai Kokkinakis. Happy for both of them, especially Tanzai. I mean, with all the injuries he's had, I saw him at the Winnetka Challenger in 2019. He couldn't even finish that tournament. We remember when he beat Roger in 2017, I believe, in Miami. I mean, he's a talented individual. Nick, this is what he loves. I mean, it's his home crowd. It's a team type atmosphere. He can be creative in doubles with his shots. I mean, this suits him perfectly. So Nick Kyrgios, Grand Slam champion.
Just a quick thing that I would like to throw in. Everything you said about the two of them, they ignited the country. That the fans were loving it. They were very entertaining to watch. I'll only say this: Nick said some things after the match about what I can't remember precisely what he said, but the gist of it was that they really they sort of drew everybody's attention. Yes, but it was a little bit out. I was a little bit put off by it because this was Ash Barty. Ash Barty was the one that really stole the show. And it's nice for Nick to win the doubles and Kokkinakis, and all power to them. But he seemed to be putting it on a plane above Ash's win, which I did not think was fair. That's just Nick's nature. He speaks sometimes says some things that are questionable or that you could doubt. But I certainly don't take the triumph away from him, because the spirit. They kind of reminded me of the Bryan brothers with their spirit and the exuberance of the triumph. And I was glad to see that.
Yeah. And I echo your thought. Just because he says something doesn't necessarily mean it's true. And I'm with you 100%. Ash Barty united that country. But yeah, it was great. It was great for Nick and Kokkinakis to win that. Another Australian, Dylan Alcott. I mean, here's a legend, right? He's Paralympic gold in both basketball and tennis, won 15 of 20 major singles events that he's entered. You see how he is beloved, not only in Australia, but all over the world. Everyone says so nice, such nice things of Dylan. Ash Barty is in love. I mean, Ash Barty loves him. I mean, you saw them after Ash's win in the final. Just unbelievable character, and what he's done for so many people over the world. kudos, Dylan Alcott.
Yeah, I mean, you can't say enough about him. I think, David, that he's certain, with a record, that prodigious record that you just mentioned, and that kind of success in major championships and wheelchair tennis. I mean, I think that he is inevitably going to end up in the International Tennis Hall of Fame, and I think he'll be as big a hit there the day and the year that he goes in as he was in Australia this year. And so you're right. Ash Barty is probably his biggest fan, but he has quite a wide legion of fans, I would say.
He definitely does. Okay, away from the Australians for a little bit, I want to go and hear your thoughts on Madison Keys, because I'll be honest, and I like Maddie a lot, but the last few years, I've also been a little critical with how she plays, and I think she goes Mach 10 way too much. I think she goes Mach 10 all the time. I don't think she constructs points that well, and I've said that openly. Nothing against her personally. I think she's great. And I'm a big fan and I'm rooting for her. She's had a great run this summer, Steve. Did you see something different? You followed her for a while, right? Did you see something different? She ran into Ash in the semis, but up until this point, her year's been great. Have you seen something different as far as maybe playing the points a little smarter, a little bit different in her game? Because we all know about her power, but is she starting to understand how to become maybe a more complete tennis player?
Well, I think so. I mean, in fairness, I've thought that in the past when she got to the finals of the US Open. I was encouraged then back in 17. She's had her ups and downs, but yes, I think there's a little bit more of a sense of the percentages now. I think she's weighing it a little more, maybe the risks are just a bit more calculated. She's a better match player than she was when she got to the finals of the US Open. This was a big step for her to get to the semis. And I do think what she said herself is a factor, that she's got to go out there and not feel like the weight of the world is on her shoulders and be miserable out there competing. And obviously that's one of Nadal's great traits, is he loves to compete. And that was what he kept stressing over the course of this fortnight over and over again, that he was thrilled to just be out there playing tennis. She seemed to adopt that attitude, Maddie, and talked about it. And I hope that she can stay positive that way. It makes a big difference.
Amen. 100%. I'm looking forward to seeing her the rest of the year and hoping big success for Madison. College tennis, and again, the people who've listened to my podcast for a long time, I'm a huge fan of college tennis. And you now have had back-to-back years at the Australian Open where you've had a finalist on the women's side on the tour after playing college tennis. And Jen Brady, for you Jen Brady fans, stay tuned because Steve and I have a treat for you coming up. And Danielle Collins, Jen Brady played at UCLA. Danielle Collins started at Florida, then went on to Virginia. On the men's side, it's been a little harder on the single side. Kevin Anderson, he's older than both Jen and Danielle, but Kevin from Illinois, he made 2 Grand Slam finals. You look now on the men's side, you have guys like Cam Norrie and Dom Kepfer. College tennis is I don't know if you could always say in the past, but right now I think you can say college tennis can be a pathway to the pros. And I think it's proven itself these last couple of years, definitely on the women's side.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the Brady and Collins examples are just perfect. And I think that, I'm sure that to have that happen 2 years in a row like that, you see it's no accident. And I hope that is going to open some people's eyes, to that particular path, and knowing that it is available. And they both were terrific in reaching the finals. And Jen, last year, and obviously Collins, it was even more unexpected because Brady had been coming off that great US Open the previous year in the semis, losing to Osaka, then met her in the final here last year. But I don't think people saw this coming with Danielle Collins, and she just had a spectacular fortnight. And obviously the grounding that she got and the grooming that she got in college tennis has served her well in the pro game.
Yeah, I would agree. I don't know, Steve. It's unbelievable where we're at. I mean, again, I'll leave it with Rafa and Ash. You couldn't ask for 2 better champions. On the men's side, you got Rafa now at 21, Novak at 20, Fed at 20. We don't know Fed's future, right? He's still coming back. He's still trying to come back from injury. Novak's got at least a few more years in him, but the very next major, as we said, is Roland Garros. Novak got Rafa last year, but Rafa has owned that tournament 13 times. He's won it. This is just fascinating to me, and it's not close to being over, I don't think.
No, the race is very much on still. However, one of the keys is going to be Novak sorting out what he wants to do vis-a-vis the vaccine. I mean, he's going to play in Dubai, but we don't know if he's going to be able to play at Roland Garros or go back and defend his Wimbledon title, either of those titles, Roland Garros or Wimbledon. It's not certain. I hope he's back in there. I mean, this only should increase his motivation. It only should get his juices flowing in the sense of saying, my God, I thought I was ready to take the lead over Rafa and Roger. Now Rafa's got a lead on me and he's going to go to Roland Garros as the favorite. And I can't let that happen. So I've got to take the vaccine and I got to play. You would hope that would be the way you would think, but there's no certainty of that. And so suddenly the picture has changed dramatically in a very short span here. Because as it stands now, we have to look at Rafa as the clear favorite to go back and win number 14. There's still only a handful of guys that can beat him at Roland Garros. That is for certain. So it's a fascinating picture. Let's just hope that the Djokovic Nadal rivalry and Novak vying for these majors along with Rafa will continue.
And I think especially Novak fans obviously want Novak back in the picture. And I think Rafa and Roger fans would want Novak back in the picture too, because in any sport, you want the best players there competing for the most important titles at stake. And I echo your thoughts. However it works itself out, the bottom line is I hope Novak's competing with these guys for titles, because it just makes the sport that much greater. Anything else we need to add? I mean, we could have gone on that match for a long time. Rafael Nadal over Daniil Medvedev, again, coming back from a 2-0 deficit, 2-3 down, love 40 in the third. It looked bleak, but Rafa, the warrior he is, does it again. Yeah, no, it's going to be he will treasure this triumph for the rest of his life. There's no doubt about that, because it was the most improbable in many ways of the 21 majors that he's collected across his career. So, and he probably felt the least prepared for it, despite winning the ATP 250 event right there in Melbourne, right before the Australian Open. So now here he is, poised to try to stay healthy and go back to Roland Garros. And this could be a substantial year for Rafa Nadal. Unbelievable. I hope everybody enjoyed this tournament the past 2 weeks. We're so happy that once the mess that was right up until the first ball of this tournament got resolved, we can focus on the tennis, and what a 2 weeks it was. And thank you for listening, and we will be back with you shortly. We got a great guest coming up next week. I hinted to it earlier in the episode, so stay tuned, everybody. Thanks again, Steve. This was awesome.
David, thank you.